Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Buck, Senator Daley, here. Senator Hammond, Senator Lang, here. Senator Pazina, present. Senator Scheibel, Senator Stone, here. Chair Spearman.
Here. And please mark the other committee members present once they arrive. I want to welcome our audiences joining us here in Carson City and those who are joining us in Las Vegas or remotely. Today we have one bill hearing on the agenda, but I'd like to take time to go over some housekeeping items. As you know, these meetings can be viewed through our streaming service on the legislature's YouTube channel, both of which can be accessed on the legislature's website. There are various ways that members of the public can engage with us and participate throughout this process. You can do that in person, in Carson City or Grant Sawyer in Las Vegas, telephonically, and instructions for telephone participation is available on today's meeting agenda. You can also submit written comment to the committee email address listed on the agenda or by sharing your opinion via the legislature's opinion website on Nellis. Anyone wishing to testify should sign in at the table by the door, and please present a business card if you have one to our committee secretary. Any exhibits for the committee must be submitted in electronic format no later than 8 o'clock the day before the meeting. The committee manager, Terry Miller, or our committee policy analyst, Cesar Megarajo, please contact them for any information that can be found on our committee page. When testifying, please remember to turn on your microphone and clearly state your name and your entity before you begin presenting your testimony, and each time you open the microphone to speak, please make sure that you say your name again. We want to ensure that everybody who's listening to us, especially those who are listening remotely via computer, have a chance to hear you. And if you do not speak clearly and if you do not project your voice, many times they are unable to do so. A reminder to all that pursuant to Nevada Revised Statute 218.085, it is unlawful for a person to knowingly misrepresent facts when testifying before a legislative committee. A person who knowingly does so is guilty of a misdemeanor. In addition, both the chair and members may request any testifier to submit documentation supporting their testimony. All committee-related information is available on Nellis, which is accessible from the legislature's website. And finally, please, ma'am, please, sir, turn off all of your electronic devices, especially cell phones. Put them in silent mode during the meeting. And so we will begin our hearing this morning on Senate Bill 249, sponsored by Vice Chair Lang. Vice Chair, just begin when you are ready.
Good morning, Chair Spearman. Happy Monday. And members of the committee, I'm Roberta Lang. I represent Senate District 7 in Clark County. And thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 249, a bill that seeks to clarify the practice of cosmetology by including the practice of advanced estheticians and clarifying the language from Senate Bill 291 from last year. I'm pleased to be joined by Steve McDonald, Executive Director of the State Board of Cosmetology, who will go through the sections of the bill and answer any questions that you might have. As you know, last session, we had a bill for estheticians because the estheticians were not licensed in Nevada. And so with the board's help, we license estheticians, and to this date, we've licensed over 1,000 estheticians in the state of Nevada, so I would consider it hugely successful. But with that, there are bumps in the road because it's a change for people, and we had some bumps in the road too, and the Board of Cosmetology has worked over the interim to try and resolve those issues, and they just told me today that they've met with the people, a smaller group of people that had some issues with how we had written the bill and been able to resolve all those issues, and they feel really good about where the Board of Cosmetology is headed. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Steve McDonald and have him go through the bill with you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Vice Chairman, and members of the committee. Stephen McDonald, Executive Director of the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology. I appreciate coming before you concerning this latest bill. As Vice Chair Lang just mentioned, it's more to clarify and do some housekeeping. What precipitated this bill was that because of the two-layer license, having an advanced esthetician and a regular esthetician license, it actually forced us to clarify and clean up the rest of the bill. So that's why we clarify it as more of a housekeeping bill. With the Madam Chair's permission, I'd like to go through briefly and say what an overview of our board is. The Nevada State Board of Cosmetology was established in 1931 with a mission to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of those that obtain cosmetology-related services through the delivery of quality testing, licensing, inspection, and education services that focus on consumer protection in NRS 644A and its related regulations under NAC 644A. Last summer, on June 13, 2022, the board held a town hall meeting with the cosmetology industry, specifically with the estheticians, to hear their concerns and comments on the newly passed law. The overwhelming consensus was that some of the services that were unintentionally removed from the scope of practice in the regular esthetician license had been moved into the advanced esthetician. Well, the board heard them, and through that public hearing, 5.5 hours, on January 6th, the board proposed these changes that you see before you, and we're fortunate to have Vice Chair Lang to sponsor this bill to clarify and, remedy some of the results from that bill. I also want to say that I have two staff members down south, Miss Janie Huggins, she's our Chief Compliance Officer, as well as Lauren Gossage, which is our Regulatory Compliance Specialist, to add clarification or any questions, because they are also licensed in the cosmetology area, as well as work for us in the regulatory section. I want to go through just some of the highlights of the bill quickly. Section 1, in our communications with the nursing board, they actually have a regulation that deals with direct supervision of registered nurses. And at a staff level, they had recommended that this may not be appropriate for this to be in our bill. We are neutral to that because we have a jurisdiction over NRS 632. But since they had said that there is a direct regulation on supervision of registered nurses, that might be an area that could be removed from the bill. Going into Section 7, which is a highlight of the advanced aesthetic procedures. Our board has proposed that the exfoliation, microdermabrasion, dermaplaning, extraction, hydrotherapy be moved back to the basic esthetician license. So that way the estheticians can continue to do those services. Because right now it appears that under the way the law is now, they can't provide those services. The board proposed this after hearing from the estheticians back last summer. And as you'll see that under Section 8 of the bill, as well as under Section 11, those services have been moved back. I think the members have already seen under Section 15 some of the clarification that the board has proposed. It's just adding language, finds necessary to carry out the provisions of this chapter. That's if the executive director wants to find or open up other locations to enforce the law for compliance and safety, that the executive director would bring that directly for board approval. And those are just minor clarifications. And the rest of the bill is more housekeeping and clarification, getting rid of duplicative language, as well as obsolete licenses that we no longer do, such as demonstrators of makeup. we don't offer those kind of licenses or registrations anymore. So we propose to clean that up. So it's been, because of what happened last session, it forced the agency to go through the statute and clear it up and clean it up. And with that, we're open for any questions. Oh, yes.
We have an amendment that I want to go over first.
Yes. Okay. So, of course, the First Amendment was Section 1. We rather go ahead and move that completely out. It appears that this nursing statute changes, it appears it was copied from our advanced esthetician section, but 632, which we have no jurisdiction on, and after discussions with the nursing board staff, at the staff level, they believe that that would be appropriate, is that would be handled between the nursing board, staff, and of course the legislature. Section 15 is the other amendment that we wanted under subsection 2, may establish offices in as many locations in the state as the executive director finds necessary to carry out the provisions of this chapter. The board would like to add, at the end of that sentence, with the approval of the board. And then there's one more amendment under section 44. Yes. Under section 44, it's page 26 of the bill. Subsection 2, if the person practices cosmetology in more than one place, the person shall display the license or certificate or a duplicate of the license or certificate wherever he or she is actually working. At the end of that, we'd like to add, on the public. And those were the latest amendments. Thank you.
And with that, Chair, we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Senator Pazina?
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much. It was more of a comment on page 6, section 4, 4C, and just potentially an amendment. If the citation is mailed, because they do have a limited time to be able to respond, if the citation is mailed 3 days after the date on which the citation is mailed by certified mail, I can tell you just from personal experience, I've had things wait 7 to 14 days before arriving by certified mail, and because they only have a limited response time, that might be something to look at just as a potential amendment. Thank you.
Senator Daley, and then Senator Buck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just had some questions, I think, for the director. And I know there are some things that are taken out. You're going to be done by regulation, or at least it says so. But any idea on how long the moratorium on regulations are? And if the bill passes and takes that stuff out, now you have to put it in regulation. And I know there's a couple of places where you actually are going to put a fee in the regulation. What's going to happen if the bill passes and you can't do regulations for 4 or more years?
Yes, Senator. Steve McDonald, Executive Director for the State Board. You're actually correct. The governor's moratorium from his executive order has frozen all regulation hearings. However, we can request an exemption to his executive order. In fact, we have a regulation that's with the LCB right now that was sent to them back in August of last year. And we did get an exemption from the governor's office to move forward with that regulation. So based upon what happens here, we can definitely modify that regulation and have hearings.
So your answer is we roll the dice. We are a gaming state. It's okay. If I can have, so my other question, I believe it's in sections 20, 22, 24, 25, 26. So what type of evidence are you going to accept from someone that can, to demonstrate that they're have experience in another state when they come here? They're just going to show that they registered in that state, or are you going to review what that state requires to be licensed? I'm just wondering, what's the comparison to what we have in Nevada, and how are you planning on? Because it just says that they got to submit evidence, but I'm just curious what you're going to accept. And it's in all of those different sections, basically the same language.
Yes, Stephen McDonald. Sure, Senator. I actually have Ms. Janie Huggins down south. She's our compliance chief, and actually is the one that reviews that evidence, and she can speak to that. But generally speaking, we not only look at their certification, their license that they have in the other state or in the other country, we have to look at their curriculum to see that it does match what we have in Nevada. But she can definitely add more clarification for you.
Well, I think, especially when you go into other countries, I'm going to assume states, but I shouldn't assume that, I don't know what some other country may require. They just say, now they've been doing it, so we're going to go ahead and give them a license. Don't know. So some language to clarify that it would be not less than what it is, to qualify in Nevada or something like that. The evidence would need to show that. Two more if it's okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Let's go to Las Vegas. You had an answer for the first question.
Correct. This is Janie Huggins, the Chief Compliance Officer. So for anyone that has an active license in the United States, they can transfer that active license just by showing proof, and then we coordinate with the other state agencies to verify that they do have that license or the minimum training that we require here in Nevada. The intent for this proposed language is to aid those that are coming more out of country. Typically, we require them to show proof that they attended a schooling hours similar to what we require in Nevada per license type, which, as you stated, it's done differently from country to country. Some of them require schooling, some of them actually have a license that they can transfer. So the intent is that any individuals transferring with experience out of country, whether they can show their tax documents versus schooling transcripts, this would better aid them in the reciprocity process.
Is there something along those lines in regulation, or, it's just left wide open, and I know this is what you're telling us today, but having a little more guidance would be useful somewhere, either in the bill or in regulation. But I appreciate the answer. Thank you. You answered one of my questions when you made the amendment in Section 15, because my question was, why give all the power to the executive director? But you say with the approval of the board, so that's fine. And then just want to clarify, when you delete the language that says something is going to be a public record, just because you delete that language doesn't mean that everything is confidential. The way I understand the provisions, and then in 239, there's still only the one section in 239 that makes something confidential that's listed there. So actually, I think taking that language out is helpful. It makes it less confusing, because I've always taken the position it's a public record unless it's made confidential. So if there's nothing that makes it confidential, so when you have language in there that says these things are public, it just creates a conflict that someone could make an argument, well, they said this was public but not this. So I think taking that language out probably helps, and you fix the part on the executive director. Last question was in Section 51 on the deleted language there about instructors and what they have to have regarding taught in the School of Cosmology, majority of the practice and branches. Is there a shortage on instructors, or has it just not been an issue when it gets to instructors being able to see those schools? Because you're eliminating that they had practical experience in an established place of business for at least 1 year, and in the practice of the majority of the branches taught at the school. So I just wonder what the genesis or the reasoning behind removing that requirement for an instructor was.
Sure, Senator. I would actually defer to Ms. Huggins again, because, again, they regulate that area.
This is Janie Huggins. We removed that language because there's two paths to getting an instructor's license. You can become a student instructor or a provisional. if you are a provisional instructor, you have already demonstrated to the board that you have a year's worth of work experience and your minimum hour requirement is reduced. If you're a student instructor, those are typically individuals that go to a cosmetology school, obtain a license, and then go immediately into an instructor program. Without them, with that language in there, it prohibits them from acting as a licensed instructor in a school of cosmetology without that year's worth of experience.
And thank you for that. So you're saying it's covered by the words that remain of a licensed instructor. So all of that language you're taking out is a requirement to be licensed. So there's no actual change with or without that language. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Senator Buck?
Thank you, Chair Spearman. Before the bill last session, did you license under all estheticians under a basic license?
Yes, Senator Buck. Steve McDonald for the record. Yes.
Okay. So then you added the advanced license, which basically put a lot of the bulk of what these people who have been doing for years into the advanced license. One of those being laser. So can you explain to me what you're doing with the laser, which is a little more extreme?
Yes, Senator. Stephen McDonald for the record. Laser training has always, well, at least the way the law is right now, it is under the advanced esthetician license, because when you're dealing with certain lasers, especially that are FDA approved, you actually need a prescription for them. And most of the time, you're going to get them from doctors that are prescribing. So from our discussions with the medical board and with the nursing board, they felt that at a staff level that dealing with lasers such as that, you need more training to do that. And right now, as the law is, there is a grandfather clause that happened from last session that provides a 75-hour laser course. If you're already an esthetician, you take a 75-hour laser course, you can be grandfathered in and get the AE license. That grandfather ends October 1, and then after that, there's only 2 paths to becoming an advanced esthetician. Either an esthetician right now, and you'd have to take an extra 300 hours if you on top of your 600 hours, become an AE, or you can go directly to the AE license doing the 900 hours. So that is the reason why, because dealing with the type of lasers out there, there are some that you can buy off the shelf that, they're from China and other places.
The estheticians that I spoke to do not want to train in laser. So that's why they don't want to take a class for the advanced license, because they don't do laser. They can't afford a laser in their little practice. And so I do like that separated out. Just want to clarify that. Let's see. I think that's it. Thank you.
Additional questions? Senator Stone?
Thank you, sir, for the presentation. Just a couple of questions. When you were talking about reciprocity, and I'm more concerned about reciprocity from other countries, it's very difficult to compare curriculums and experience, but I believe I read in the bill that not only are you going to compare their hours of experience, but you're also going to have them do a live demonstration to prove that they're competent on the skills. Is that correct?
Steve McDonald, yes, Senator. There is a practical exam that you have to take.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And then, piggybacking on my colleague from Southern Nevada, I think some of the complaints that we've had is that some of these training courses are very expensive. Some have said I've got to take a $1,500 class to be certified in a service that I'm not going to be performing, because I don't want to do that. So, we're talking about people that pretty much live on modest means. I mean, you're not becoming millionaires by becoming a cosmetologist, although some, Paul Mitchell, did in fact do that. So is there a difference in a fee for today for an esthetician versus an advanced care esthetician? And what are those fees to get that licenses?
I'm going to defer to Ms. Huggins down south. She has that schedule.
All of our licensing fees, this is Janie Huggins for the record, all of our licensing fees are the same regardless of what type of license. So it's $70 for a 2-year or $140 for a 4-year.
Okay, so that's very reasonable. I was just curious if, by moving people back from the advanced esthetician to just esthetician, if they'd see a decrease in fees, but that sounds very reasonable to me. Thank you very much.
Additional questions? Okay, just so, I have just a couple, and it's probably more along the lines of a comment. This bill gave me nightmares last session. Yeah, the calls and everything of that nature. So let me ask this, going, excuse me, going to something that Senator Buck said in terms of, advanced esthetician versus an esthetician. And if the person doesn't want to do laser, but they want to do everything else. So even if they do it once, they still have to have that license, advanced esthetician. And I'm only making the distinction because that's what someone said to me. Well, if I only do it once, why do I need to do that? And so my response was, probably because you may do it more than once if you do it once. I don't know. Is that a question?
Because we deal with the scope of practice, Steve McDonald. Thank you, Vice Chair. Because the scope of practice is we're making it as clear as possible. If you are going to use lasers, that's in the advanced esthetician. If you're not going to use lasers, then there's no need to get that AE license. From a regulatory standpoint, we don't want to have any ambiguity in between that. So you're absolutely right, Madam Chair, that if someone does it once out of their scope of practice, we tend to give them a warning saying that that's not part of your scope of practice for your license. We typically don't automatically go straight to citing them. We try to give them a warning saying, hey, you need to stop doing that, even though in that one particular instant, they could damage somebody. But typically, we try to give warnings first to get them in compliance, and then we go to the next step of issuing citations and where they can come before a board if they want to appeal the citation.
Thank you. One clarification here. Can you clarify if the amendment would delete all of Section 1 in its entirety or just the supervision provisions?
Steve McDonald, it would remove all of Section 1 because that deals with NRS 632. What we proposed in our own, in 644A, is to add the registered nurses to the exemptions of doctors, APRNs, PAs, physician assistants. All we did was add that one category of practitioner, so that way they would be exempt from our statute. We didn't propose anything to go into 632.
Thank you. Committee, additional questions? Okay. Senator Lang, you have anyone else who's going to present with you?
We are good, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so I will open it up to those who are in support of Senate Bill 249. If you'll come forward here in Carson City and in Las Vegas. If anyone, I don't see anyone there, but if anyone else is there in Las Vegas in support. Anyone here in Carson City in opposition or in Las Vegas? So I neglected to ask BPS, is there anyone on the phones in support?
If you'd like to testify in support of SB 249, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you, BPS. Does that include opposition as well?
If you'd like to testify in opposition to SB 249, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Anyone here in Carson City or in Las Vegas who are testifying neutral?
Good morning. My name is Sarah Watkins. I'm the Executive Director for the Nevada State Medical Association. Given the added amendment, those were our main concerns, so we're going to testify in neutral, but we would like to work with the bill sponsor to get a little bit more clarification. Thank you.
Anyone in Las Vegas, neutral? BPS, anyone on the phones?
If you would like to testify in neutral for SB 249, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Vice Chair Lang, closing comments? Okay, good. Committee, any additional questions? Okay, we will now close the hearing on Senate Bill 249. And since that's the only bill we're hearing this morning, I'll open it up now for public comment. And please keep in mind, public comment does not address anything associated with Senate Bill 249. So if there's anyone here in Carson City or in Las Vegas that would like to do public comment, please come forward. BPS, anyone on the phones?
If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. The public line is open and working. There are no callers at this time.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we will end this session of the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor, and we will be right back here on Wednesday at 0800. Thank you. We are adjourned.